everybody, it's Joe Roberts with wines.com, and I'm out here in nature, in my backyard, a tiny house for my daughter, and yeah, sometimes for me. And I'm here to talk to you in nature about natural wine. And you probably heard some stuff in the wine media about natural wine. So what the heck is this stuff? Lines being drawn, battles being fought on both sides. And I thought I'd spend a couple minutes and try and demystify the argument a little bit. I'll warn you ahead of time, we're not going to get very far because the argument's kind of weird, but it makes for a good copy. So let's talk. So natural wine, what is it? The biggest problem with natural wine is there's no definition for natural wine. So natural wine basically means wine that's made with as few additions to the process as possible. There's probably natural wine Nazi stalwarts out there who are going to come after me for that poor definition, but basically that's what it boils down to. Most people ask me, if I talk about natural wine, what do you mean natural? I thought all wine was natural, it's made out of grapes. Well, it's true, but the natural wine movement, as people are calling it, basically what they're saying is they want wine to be made with as few additions to the process as humanly possible. That means not adding cultured yeasts to the process, not adding sulfur or other additives to the process, for example, using as few pesticides in the vineyard as possible. So one of the arguments that the natural wine movement makes is that this wine is going to be better for you. And from a common sense standpoint, and we don't really have any scientific data to back it up, from a common sense standpoint, that makes a lot of sense. You go out, you buy organic, pesticide-free, etc., etc. It's up to your own personal taste whether that tastes better, but there probably is something to that argument that it might be a little bit better, at least a little bit better for you, as a person and your health. Now, whether it's better for the environment, that's another argument. Not sure they can win that one. That really comes down to the individual place and the individual production. For example, if I have a special treatment that I put on my vines that's better for my vines, but I have to truck it in from 300 miles away, does that really make it better for the environment with the carbon that I'm using to transport, etc., etc.? So it's not a simple argument there. The other thing about natural wine that the movement will tell you is that it actually represents place better, so that the wine, where the wine is from, the terroir, etc., will really come out of that wine without all the spoofulation and other things that are going on to it. That's not my word, by the way. The spoofulation comes from the natural wine movement to describe, I guess, what we would call conventionally made wines. Well, that argument was debunked a little bit, or at least undermined in a movie that recently came out called Wine from Here. And part of that film, natural winemakers actually sat down with a blind tasting with natural wines, and they couldn't identify where they were from. So, while those wines may exhibit something extra, they don't necessarily give you an actual fingerprint of where the place in the world where that wine is from. I will say this about natural wines, though. In my experience, they tend to be more vibrant. So they tend to feel more alive in your mouth. The acidity, the food friendliness is really jumping with some of those wines. Are they better than conventional wines? Well, I've had crappy wines that were made conventionally and crappy wines that were made in the natural wine movement ways. And I've had amazing wines that were made both ways. So I think it really comes down to, of course, your own personal taste and preferences. One thing you do have to watch out for when you're experimenting with natural wine is that because they lack some of those preservatives, some of the additives, they tend to be a little less stable in the bottle. So when you're transporting them, there might be a little higher probability that wine could have a little bit of a bottle shock to it, not taste quite great when you get it home, or that over time it might be a little bit more susceptible to spoilage yeasts and come out a little more, smell a little bit more like goats or something than like fruits that you want. So your mileage may vary. You need to be careful. It doesn't mean you shouldn't experiment with them, because you may find your favorite new winery is actually using natural wine processes. So until next time, have fun, stay in school, don't do drugs, and drink like your pleasure depended on it. Cheers.